Take it away, Council President.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Providence City Council, so our regular meeting. Today is Thursday, February 4th, 2021. And Mr. Clerk, or Madam Clerk, can you please read, can you please call the roll? I'm not sure who's
Council President Matos.
Present.
Councilwoman Anthony.
Present.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Present.
Councilman Correa.
Present.
Councilman Espinal.
Present.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilwoman Harris.
Present.
Councilman Igliozzi.
Present.
Councilor Kerwin.
Present.
Councilwoman LaFortune.
Present.
Councilor Miller.
Present.
Councilman Narducci.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Ryan.
Present.
Councilor Salvatore.
Present.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
You have 15 present and none absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The invocation will be given by Councilwoman Nerva LaFortune.
Almighty God, the one who is above us and who has blessed us and who guides us, we come to you today as we prepare for this meeting. I hope that you empower us as one entity, an entity that is here to serve as the legislative body of the city, to serve our communities, to uphold policies and initiatives, and to bring our communities together. I ask you to carry us through and allow us to trust you and guide us and provide us with faith in our colleagues, faith in our communities, and also to help us make decisions that will put our city forward. I thank you. I ask you to guide us. I ask you to show us patience, empathy, and also tolerance for one another. In God we pray, amen.
The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America will be led by Councilor Rachel Miller.
I pledge allegiance
To the
flag of the United States of America.
and
and
to
to
To the republic for which it
which
stands.
stands
One nation.
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
With
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Morning, number.
Thank you. With that, can we please ask, can I have the solicitor, Jeff Dana, state the legality of this meeting on the record, please?
Yes, good evening. City Solicitor Jeff Dana. Per executive order of Governor Raimondo, we are permitted to hold this meeting via Zoom.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Approval of minutes. Item 3, Journal of Proceedings number 1 of the regular meeting of the City Council held January 7th, 2021, and Journal of Proceedings number 2 of the regular meeting of the City Council held January 21st, 2021.
Madam President,
Leader Ryan.
motion on to approve on a voice vote, item number 3, please.
Second, Madam President.
Motion has been made on second to approve item number 3. And there's gonna be a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Election of one member to the Providence External Review Authority, para. Item 4, election of one member to the Providence External Review Authority, para.
Is there any, I'm gonna call for nominations right now for one member for the Providence External Review Authority. Are there any nominations?
Madam President, I would like to
Yeah.
nominate, yes, Madam President.
Go ahead, continue.
I would like to nominate Kimberly D.
Second
want-
the motion, Madam President.
Madam President, if you don't mind, I just want to explain a little bit about who she is to our fellow colleagues that we have. Kimberly D was born in Providence. She is a graduate of Classical High. She actually joined the Power Board like in October 2019. She has a wealth of knowledge around the Power Ordinance itself. Her desire is to see, she have a goal to see that Para become the image of the resource that it is for the community. And thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to explain that to our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'm going to direct the clerk to cast one vote for Kimberly D. To be a member of the Providence External Review Authority.
So noted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation of ordinances. Item 5, Councilman Gonsalves. An ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for Providence Chestnut LLC.
Madam President,
Leader Ryan.
on motion to withdraw item 5 at the request of the sponsor.
Second, Madam President.
The motion has been made on second to withdraw item number 5 at the request of the sponsor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have.
Item 6, Councilman Gonsalves, Council President Matos, Councilman Correa, Espinal, Councilor Kerwin, and Councilwoman LaFortune. An ordinance amending Chapter 16, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 11, Discrimination, Section 16-54, Definitions of the Providence Code of Ordinances.
Okay, I see some hands being raised. I have the sponsor, which I believe you want to speak, correct? Let me just check for co-sponsor. I see Councilman Salvatore and Councilor Miller. Do you looking for co-sponsor?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, co-sponsor and Councilman Narducci,
Yes,
co-sponsor.
please.
Councilwoman Castillo, co-sponsor. Any additional co-sponsors? Councilman Taylor. Okay, Councilman Goncal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This ordinance, for those who aren't aware of it, codifies on the local level an amendment to the definition of discrimination to further include any policy or practice which by design or effect separates or has a disproportionate impact based on an individual's hair texture, hair type, or protective hairstyle. That's commonly or historically associated with race, including braids, locks, twists, cornrows, afros, and head wraps, to name a few. Minorities have suffered hair discrimination for decades. And right here in our city, African-American women and men face instances of hair discrimination, and nationally are more likely to be sent home from the workplace because of their hair. The movement to end hair discrimination is certainly gaining traction across this country. And this amendment to expand the definition to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyle and hair texture is crucial to ensure the protection of traits associated with race, including hair texture, and to protect hairstyles that are sometimes rejected by society. And Cincinnati, Ohio, Montgomery County, Maryland, and some other municipalities have done this recently and banned race-based hair discrimination. And Providence can lead the way in a way that allows folks to bring their true and authentic selves to whatever space they're in, so that they're not feeling rejected by society when they wear their ethnic hairstyles. Lastly, the amendment also defines sexual orientation, which isn't defined in this section and would be appropriate to further define to ensure the protection of our community from discrimination regardless of their perceived or their actual sexual orientation. So with that, I would appreciate all of my colleagues supporting this. And I want to thank all who have already signed on. And I would greatly appreciate your support on this item moving forward. And I look forward to thoroughly vetting this item in committee and bringing it back to the council for a second vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to co-sponsor, and then I'm going to go with the council members that would like to speak. I see two hands up. I see Councilwoman LaFortune, Chairman Iglesias. For co-sponsor, or would you like to speak?
Oh, are you speaking to me, Council President?
So are you waiting to speak or for co-sponsor?
Oh, I'm already a co-sponsor.
Ready.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So let me check with the chairman and come back. Chairman Iglesias, do you want to be a co-sponsor? Chairman Iglesias, I cannot hear you. Right, I'm gonna.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, Madam.
Yes.
Madam President, can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm just looking to co-sponsor if that's okay. If there's no objection from the sponsor, that's all.
Okay, perfect. Thank you,
Madam President.
Madam President.
Deputy Majority Leader Harris, you want to co-sponsor or you want to speak?
Yes, Madam President. I would like to co-sponsor. Thank the sponsor for the definition. Thank you.
Perfect. Councilwoman Ryan, do you want to co-sponsor?
I would like to co-sponsor on.
Right.
I would also like to say that I welcome this discussion in ordinance, and we can certainly make that amendment, Councilman Goncalves, that you suggested was missing from the language. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Councilwoman LaFortune. Thank you for your patience. I just want to make sure I don't miss any co-sponsor.
No
Councilwoman LaFortune.
I have nowhere to go but here. Thank you so much, Council President. And we thank you, Councilman, for putting in this ordinance to ensure that people of color, people of the African diaspora, amongst various indigenous groups do not experience any type of sort of discrimination because of their hair. So I have worn my hair in natural styles in high school. And my daughter has locks. And I hope that she can continue to grow in a society that will accept her, that will not deny her the opportunity to go into schools or seek a job. And it becomes a norm to see young women express themselves, to express their culture, who they are, and also for our communities to embrace that. We do see in the news at times where kids are sent home from schools. People are not hired in jobs. There was a story about a lawyer who was offered a position and was told that they had to cut their locks off in order to get the job. So we are very lucky that so far we don't hear these cases often. And I also want to acknowledge Rep. Anastasia Williams, because a few years ago, she had put in a piece of legislation because there was an effort to require licensing for hair braiders. And, in many ways, it's a sort of cultural appropriation because, that whole concept and hair braiding and natural styles is something that is deeply rooted within Black communities and again, amongst the whole African diaspora. And so I am very grateful for her to ensure that people can continue to express themselves, to express who they are. And one beautiful thing about natural hair is that there are different techniques in natural hair. There are different styles. They can represent the tribe, your tribe, the region of the country that you're in. And it's your crown. And so we live in a diverse city, in a diverse state, and I'm very excited that we have policies to embrace the diversity of all people, regardless of their background, regardless of how they wear their hair, and that we can continue to create a culture of tolerance and acceptance. So thank you, Councilman. Thank you to all the sponsors, and I look forward to the conversation as well.
Madam President,
Thank you.
Madam President, just quick, I just want everybody to understand how proud and how much I love my hair too.
Yes, we do. I just want to see Council Deputy Majority Leader Harris. your hands is up. You wanted to speak or you're all set? And Councilwoman LaFortune, your hands is still up.
I'm all set, Madam President. I
Okay.
got to get used to those blue hands.
Okay, thanks. So this item is going to be referred to the Committee on Ordinance.
Item 7, Councilor Salvatore, Councilwoman Anthony, Councilman Correa, Espinal, Gonzalez, and Narducci. An ordinance and amendment of Chapter 2, Administration, Article 1, in general of the Code of Ordinances to add Section 2-18.7, Capital Improvement Plan Reporting.
Refer to the Committee on Finance.
Presentation of resolution.
Sorry, I missed two hands. I see Councilor Miller and then Councilwoman LaFortune.
I was just asking to request to be added as a co-sponsor, Madam President. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I missed that. And Councilwoman LaFortune?
To be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Co-sponsors? Okay.
Yes, please.
Perfect. Thank you.
So noted. My apologies. Item 8, presentation of resolution.
I'm sorry. Sean, I have another co-sponsor, I believe, from Kerwin, right?
Yep.
Sure.
Sure. So noted.
Madam President, I can just briefly
Yes, sir.
explain what this is. In the spirit of transparency, I'm asking, and along with our co-sponsors, we're asking the administration to do a better job of reporting where capital improvement dollars are being spent throughout the city. We spend a lot of time talking about equity in making sure that all of our neighborhoods are represented and receiving the resources that they need. So I think it's important for us as the legislative body who plays an instrumental role in approving these dollars and where they are spent throughout the city, that we can convey to our constituents and neighbors that there is an equitable process for how these dollars are being allocated. So that's the genesis behind the ordinance. I appreciate the support of the co-sponsors, and that this is a non-controversial issue. So I can't see why we can't address this sooner rather than later. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Huh? Mr. Clerk, I think we're ready for items 8 through 13.
Okay. Item 8, Council President Matos, by request, resolution authorizing
Leader
approval of the
Ryan?
following.
Motion to waive the reading of items 8 through 13 and refer to the Committee on Finance.
Second, Madam President.
The motion has been made on seconds to waive the readings of item number 8 through 13, and these items are going to be referred to the Committee on Finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item 14, Council President Matos,
Madam President,
resolution remembering.
Leader Ryan?
motion to ask the clerk to waive the reading of items 14 through 21 and to pass on a voice vote, and to also ask the clerk to read items 14, 15, and 17, the resolutions in their entirety into the record.
Second, Madam President.
Motion has been made on second to pass the items 14 through 21 on a voice vote.
Madam President?
Yes, Chairman Iglesias.
Yeah, could I just co-sponsor those items as we're?
One at a time.
All right.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Sorry. So let me just finish the motion. The motion is for the items 14 through 21 to be passed on a voice vote. The clerk is going to be reading into the records item 14, 17.
15 and 17.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, 14, 15, 17, read in their entirety.
Yeah, 14, 15, and 17 will be read entirely. So motion has been made on second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I have several. I have Chairman Iglesias want to co-sponsor all the items.
Yes, Madam President, thank you.
I have several hands raised, so I'm going to check with everybody that have their hands raised first. Councilor Miller.
I would also like to co-sponsor all of those items.
Okay, perfect. Councilman Salvatore.
Same request. Thank you.
Councilman Taylor,
Same request. Thank you.
Councilman Correa,
Same request, please.
Councilor Kerwin. Same. Deputy Majority Leader Harris.
Same request.
Councilwoman LaFortune.
Same request. I'm co-sponsor all.
So I'm just checking the hands are up. I think Councilwoman Castillo wants the same also as co-sponsor.
Yes.
I have Councilman Espinal.
The same, thank you.
Okay, and Majority Leader Ryan.
Same request, Madam
Same
President.
request. Good.
Councilman
All right.
Aducci has his finger up. Same request, please.
Sorry, Councilman. I was looking at the hands raised on the side.
I don't have a hand raise button for some reason. I don't know.
All right. I'll remember to check with you. Okay. So motion has been made a second. We all voted on this. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the item? Yeah.
Yes, this would be item 14, resolution remembering the legacy and memory of Abelardo Abe Hernandez. Whereas on January 30th, 2021, Abelardo Abe Hernandez, a lifelong Providence resident and a pillar of the Olneyville community, passed away. And whereas Mr. Hernandez was a humble servant and compassionate leader who inspired everyone around him. And whereas Mr. Hernandez leaves an extraordinary legacy that touched countless families and youth in the city and neighborhood that he loved. And whereas as a man of family and faith, Mr. Hernandez led by example through his generosity with his time, devoting countless hours to coaching youth sports programs, teaching and after-school activities, and advocating for the need of investing in infrastructure for youth programming. And whereas Mr. Hernandez was a beacon of light for his local school, William de Abate, as well as a lead organizer for the Olneyville neighborhood, where he exemplified being a neighborhood keeper. And whereas Mr. Hernandez will forever be remembered for his selfless dedication to serving the needs of others, and his memory serves as a blessing to all who knew him. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Providence does hereby honor the legacy and memory of Abelardo Abe Hernandez. Be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Providence extends its deepest condolences to the entire Hernandez family, as well as Abe's extended family and friends throughout Providence and beyond.
Madam President, if I may, quick, please.
Councilman Aducci.
I just have to say that Abe was a dear friend. Back when 16 years ago, when I first decided to run, Abe was one of the first ones to come out and support me because of our relationships with youth sports. It wasn't noticed in the resolution that Abe also was the president of the Guatemalan Soccer League. And one promise I made to him back then was when I win, I would redo the Isaac Hopkins soccer field. Back then it was all dirt and rocks, and they were still playing on it. With the understanding that Abe puts a women's league together and also a youth league. And he did. And anybody that knows of that area, if you would go by there on a Saturday or a Sunday, there's thousands of people there. There's teams from all over New England there playing soccer. And you go by there on a Monday, and it was spotless. That was part of the deal, that you keep it clean. Abe was just such a kind man. Any neighborhood events, community events I held, as most you know, I had food drives for the Thanksgiving holiday, toy drives for the kids for Christmas. Abe and his wife was right there supporting everything. So it wasn't just the where he lived that he was so involved. It was a citywide thing that he was involved in, and I'm just going to miss that smile, because anytime you ever seen Abe, he had such a smile. When he came into a room, he literally lit up a room. And Council President, and I know a few of my colleagues can also. he loved taking pictures with elected officials. He just loved to take pictures. I just want to say, my deepest condolences to his family, and Abe, may you rest in peace. I'm going to miss you, buddy.
Thank you, Councilman Aduce, beautiful. And yes, and I remember the last picture we took was when we did the food drive here outside of my house for Thanksgiving. So I really gonna miss him. I see that Leader Ryan would like to speak also.
I would just like to echo on council, the senior majority leader's remarks. And I think Abe was a friend to all council members. As a new council member, you take the initiative to go out and meet people in the community that can help you do your job, help influence you. Abe introduced himself to me after my first council meeting. He welcomed me as a council person and asked me how he could help me. He literally has been my friend since day one. It's a big loss, but I also know it's a very dear and touching loss to the council president. Abe was everywhere. Anything the council did to touch the community in any way, he didn't care what neighborhood he was helping. He was there. He also was very instrumental in my rec center in bringing indoor soccer, and also he used the field behind the Battistini Rec Center. A tremendous man. It's a tremendous loss to the city of Providence. He certainly is a wonderful example of a life well lived. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Amen. He enjoyed life. He was really enjoying himself and his family in life. So we're gonna miss him. Mr. Clerk, continue.
Item 15, a resolution recognizing February 2021 as Black History Month. Whereas in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, considered the father of Black history, launched the celebration of Negro History Week. And whereas in 1976, at the United States Bicentennial Celebration, President Gerald Ford recognized the entire month of February as Black History Month, urging American citizens to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas during the month of February, observances are held to increase public awareness and knowledge of the importance of Black history in the United States. And whereas Section 2-10.2 of the Providence Code of Ordinances recognizes February as Black History Month in perpetuity to honor the innumerable contributions of African Americans to Providence, Rhode Island, and the United States of America. And whereas Black History Month serves as a reminder of all those who fought and continue to fight for social justice, civil rights, and equality. And whereas the lasting impacts of past racist practices continue to be felt by African Americans in their daily lives through education, healthcare, and housing disparities. And whereas while Black History Month serves as a reminder of the struggle for civil rights, it also serves as a call to action to rectify the many lasting inequities that continue to persist and are at times perpetuated through various institutional practices. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Providence City Council recognizes and celebrates February 2021 as Black History Month and further commits to tackling the institutional challenges faced by African Americans in Providence, Rhode Island, and the United States of America. Be it further resolved, the City Council encourages the celebration of Black History Month throughout the city of Providence as an opportunity to learn and reflect on the history of the United States while remaining hopeful and confident about the future.
I see that Deputy Majority Leader Harris has her hands up.
First of all, thank you for this ordinance, and thank all the council people who have participated in the Black History Month. What I want to say in the reference to this, under this, that we will be celebrating by Zoom Black History Month as a city council again this year on February the 15th. So make sure that all of you participate. This is something that the council been doing for a matter of about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm excited. Again, this year we will do the same thing, celebrate. I heard it's American history. It's not just Black history. It's a story that's told of many struggles, Many of us have repeated many quotes from many revolutionaries, people who have laid their lives down. I got an opportunity to meet John Lewis by Congressman Cicilline, and I got very excited about meeting John Lewis simply because of the fact that, you know, in today's time, what we have is just memories of dead heroes. But we got to understand that this struggle is still real today among Black Americans, as we can see in the pandemic, how affected this have been. So let's be very strategic about when we make moves, as much as we want to make moves. Wait a minute, sorry. Did I lose you guys?
No, you're still
right.
there.
Here we go. You see me. All right. I'm so sorry. This Zoom is. I want to say when we look at racial disparity and equity, let's really take that seriously at heart, because there's been a lot of struggles of Black America throughout history, and the struggle is still real today. So I want us to think strategically as we look at where we are today in now time, especially with the health crisis. How can we step up to the plate and continue to struggle, continue for the generation ahead of us? So I just want to say I appreciate this resolution tonight. I appreciate serving on this council as an African Black American, and as someone who really appreciate the contribution that have been done by many. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you for your leadership on organizing the celebration all this year. Mr. Clerk.
Item 17, resolution recognizing International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Whereas January 27th, the anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration and extermination camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau, has been designated by the United Nations General Assembly as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And whereas 6 million souls, including 1.5 million children, were cruelly murdered during the Holocaust, which was the systematic and state-sponsored persecution and attempted obliteration of the culture and religion of the Jewish people from 1933 to 1945. And whereas January 27th marks the annual day of commemoration honoring the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust, in addition to the Roma and Sinti, Slavs, disabled persons, LGBTQ+ individuals, and many others who were murdered by the Nazi regime. And whereas nearly 40,000 prisons, forced labor, concentration, and death camps existed across Germany and its occupied territories, and the heinous and despicable atrocities committed by the Nazis during the Holocaust is one of the most inhumane periods of human history. And whereas thousands of Jewish men, women, and children, as well as great scholars and rabbis, call Providence and Rhode Island home and have intimate connections and continue to feel the remnants of the destruction of lives, synagogues, and yeshivas at the hands of Nazi and deep-seated anti-Semitism. Whereas it is incumbent on all of us in the community to advance human rights, educate city residents, and advocate for Israel and the understanding, preservation, and the beautiful cultural heritage of the Jewish people. And therefore, be it resolved that the Providence City Council acknowledges the suffering of the Holocaust survivors and recognizes, supports, and affirms the importance of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Be it further resolved that the Providence City Council affirms its commitment to counter and fight against anti-Semitism, racism, ideologies of hatred, and all other forms of bigotry and intolerance that may lead to targeted violence. Be it further resolved that upon passage, copies of this resolution be sent to the Jewish Alliance of Greater Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Jewish Museum, and Providence synagogues such as Temple Bethel, Congregation Beth Shalom, Temple Emmanuel, Sha'arei Tefillah, Chabad of Providence, Congregation Mishkan Philo, and Sons of Jacob Synagogue.
Thank you.
Item 22, Councilor Salvatore, Councilwoman Anthony, Councilman Correa, Espinal, and Goncalves, resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of Senate Bill 2021 S-0030, an act relating to health and safety air quality in schools.
Refer to the Committee on State Legislative Affairs.
Item 23.
I'm sorry, Sean, I have two hands up. I have Councilwoman LaFortune and Councilor Miller. Councilwoman LaFortune, are you going to speak or co-sponsor?
Co-sponsor. Thank you.
Co-sponsor, thank you. Councilor Miller, co-sponsor?
Yes, I'd like to co-sponsor this and everything through item 28, if that's helpful to do in advance.
Okay.
Madam President, I'd like to co-sponsor item number 22, please.
Item number 22, Councilman Narducci and Councilwoman LaFortune, you want everything from 22 through 28?
Yeah. Yes, I thought you were going to go each, but that's Councilwoman Miller took this.
Point of order, Madam President.
All right.
We can't take sponsors until the matters are taken up. So if
All
you
right.
can, hold.
Sure, we can go back in there. I already got both of you. For item number 22, Councilman Narducci, this item is being referred. Mr. Clerk.
Item 23, Councilor Salvatore, Councilwoman Anthony, Councilman Espinal, and Goncalves.
Leader Ryan.
Resolution.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to waive reading of items 23 through 28 and refer to the Rules Committee.
Okay, so the motion has been made and second for the items 23 to 28. These items are we're gonna waive the reading and they're gonna be sent to the Rules Committee. I just want to make a note. I have Councilor Miller wants to co-sponsor all of them, as well as Councilwoman LaFortune. And I have Councilwoman Castillo, and I have Councilwoman Councilor Kerwin, and Councilman. I have Councilman Correa. Do you want to co-sponsor?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, Councilman Correa, and next I have Councilman Salvatore. You want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilman Salvatore.
It's really hard to believe that my tenure on the council has been 10 years already. Some of you have been serving longer than I have, but it struck me when I was looking at the rules that we as a body have not adopted the rules since my first year on the council. And some of you might remember that. That was in 2011. And the rules haven't been amended since the term prior to that in 2007. So I wanted to take a look at the rules, and just based on some of the conversations that I've been having with members, not only during this term, but throughout my entire tenure on the council, I thought it would be appropriate for, to take those concerns and questions into consideration and draft some potential rule changes. Madam President, I think at some point it would behoove us to take a look at the rules as a whole and consider rewriting the rules. I think there's some language in these rules that are quite antiquated. A lot of it doesn't make sense anymore. But I do want to take a few minutes and go over some of the proposals that I've made. Some are self-explanatory, but I'll go through them anyways. Item number 23 would make an amendment to Rule 2. And this is really based on a lot of what's happening around the pandemic. And this rule change would allow the council president, and it's my hope that at some point we can all reconvene in Providence City Hall, but we don't know what the guidance will be either from the CDC and or the Rhode Island Department of Health. But this would give the council president the authority to proceed with meetings based on the public health recommendations of the Rhode Island Department of Health. Again, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, but important. The next item, item number 24, would amend Rule 20 of the city councils. And this is relative to committees. As you know, we have a standing rule on committees, but it's not codified in the rules that we carry out in every, or that we should be following in every term. Secondly, what is perplexing at times is that some of the committee compositions are not updated on the city council's website. So I've received questions from constituents across the city in the past asking which council members are sitting on certain committees. And the city council website hasn't been updated. So I think we have to do a better job of updating that information. Thirdly, and we've done this in the past, but it's again never been explained in the rules, that a member should have the ability to ask a committee chair to hold a public hearing on any matter. And that matter would have to be posted consistent with the Secretary of State's rules around open meetings and the Home Rule Charter. And then lastly, there's an amendment in Rule 20 that would clarify some confusion around section or item I. Some questions have come up in the past if members of the general public have the ability to testify before committees. Now, I think our committee chairs have done a pretty good job over the years of allowing members of the public to speak, but there have been some instances where that has not happened. And I think some frustration has been felt with the general public, and they felt like they were being shut out of the public process. So this amendment in item I would remove some of that confusion and allow the committee chair to regulate the amount of time and the setting in which a member of the public can testify before any standing committee, special committee, or subcommittee. It doesn't have to be a public hearing. Item number 25 would be a rule change in item rule number 21. And, this has been a source of frustration, I would say, since my first day on the council. Some members have felt like they have very little to say in terms of what gets included in these rules, because quite frankly, leadership doesn't need a certain number of, or they don't need certain votes to advance an agenda. And the way the city council rules are drafted, they allow for massive amounts of power in the hands of a few members. And, giving sometimes one single member of the council the power to stop a measure from coming up for a vote or even receiving a hearing committee is detrimental, I think, to, again, the public process and democracy. And while this concentration of power obstructs every councilor's ability to fully represent their constituents, the effect, again, can be devastating on a city that relies on us to be their voices in City Hall. So what is the result of, again, frankly, obstructing public policy? Because that's what's happening from time to time. A city council that runs a one-sided agenda, even when legislation is supported by the general public, is not how we should be determining public policy. We see this in Washington, D.C. all of the time. And unfortunately, what has happened is the Washington, D.C. style of governing and legislating has trickled down to local government. There are many popular, non-controversial, common sense measures like banning housing discrimination, codifying recommendations from the Equal Pay Task Force in law. I think there's another housing matter or a couple of other housing matters that would create more housing opportunities, whether they be through a tax stabilization agreement or a reallocation of real estate conveyance taxes. These matters are languishing for months and sometimes years until the clock runs out, and they never become law despite garnering a lot of support of a vast majority of Providence residents. So, by not making the serious changes that are needed to fight for our neighbors, this city council at times will continue silencing the voices and the needs of countless Providence residents. And as a result, they're going to continue losing trust in their elected officials at the local level, in addition to the public process. So it's my hope that we can take Rule 21 and borrow some rule language from the Boston City Council and create a timeline for when items are heard, when they are considered for a vote. And I understand, and many of our colleagues understand, that there will be times when a recommendation might not come out of committee with a thumbs up. But that should be for the entire council to determine whether a piece of public policy is adopted by the city as a whole. And again, I just think that leaving it in the hands of a few, and at times a single council person, could be detrimental to passing one, very important legislation, and secondly, legislation that has broad support from all of our neighborhoods across Providence. So that's what Rule 21 would do. Rule 29, which is item number 20, I'm sorry, I think I skipped one. Rule 24, which is item number 26. This goes back to committee vacancies and posting this information on websites. Throughout my entire tenure on the council, there have been times when city council presidents have quite frankly failed to fill committee vacancies in a timely manner. So I think we have to do a better job of doing that. And I'm not singling any council president out, past or present, but if the city council president cannot fill a vacancy within 20 days, then the city council should make that decision for him or her. There's important work to be done. And at times we jeopardize securing a quorum to consider major pieces of legislation that our constituents expect us to take up. Rule number 29, which is item number 27 on the docket. This basically says that the city council is going to adopt the city council rules at the beginning of each term. I don't think that should be controversial. If amendments are not made by the city council, then a set of rules should be adopted so folks or members and the general public know what the expectations are moving forward. Madam President, it's my hope that at some point on an annual basis, we can convene a city council as a whole meeting to discuss not only the city council rules, but the city's code of ethics, the state's code of ethics, and what our responsibilities are in governing ourselves and adhering to local and state law. Another easy change that could be made is posting the rules on the city council website. I can't tell you how difficult it is to access these rules if you're a member of the general public. Thankfully, we have very responsive clerks in our clerk's office who will disseminate this information at the drop of a dime. So thank you to the clerk's office for always being accessible. But again, these rules should be posted on the city council's website at all times for anybody to see. And then finally, I would like to see the city council add a new rule, and that would be Rule 30. And there's been a lot of discussion, I would say, during the last 3 or 4 years, specifically around conduct and the city council. There are some legislative bodies that have created what are called committees on conduct. And just based on some of the behavior or legal issues of some of our peers and colleagues, I think it's important that we deliberate these issues and investigate them as needed. So right now, there is nothing codified in our rules that would allow us to sanction any one of our members in the case that we did have to investigate bad behavior or a wrongdoing. So Rule 30 would create sanctions for those members or for the council to consider when a council person, one of our colleagues, does have to be investigated, for the lack of a better word. So I think there's right now, I wouldn't say confusion. We don't know what to do in the case that something is brought to public light. So again, Madam President, I think it's important that at some point we do have a serious discussion about our city council rules. Other legislative bodies do this on a regular basis. There's no reason why the Providence City Council shouldn't be, one, adopting rules at the beginning of every term, and then secondly, educating not only our members, but the general public how we govern ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm looking forward to the discussion in the Rules Committee because I agree we need changes. Like we should make sure that the pro tem gets to finish the term once the president is removed. The item was being referred to the Committee on Rules. Mr. Clerk.
Reports from committees. Committee on Finance, Councilman John J. Igliozzi, Chairman, transmits the following with recommendation.
Madam President.
Leader Ryan.
On motion to pass item 20, waive the reading and pass item 29 for the first time on a roll call vote.
Second.
The motion has been made and second to waive the readings on item number 29 and to pass the item for the first time on a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk.
Council President Matos.
Aye.
Madam President?
We're in the middle of a vote.
I'm sorry, there were some hands up for discussion that I missed, so sorry. Before the vote, we need to have the discussion. I see Councilman Salvatore, Councilman Correa, Councilor Miller, and Councilman Goncalves. I just want to double check that those hands up is because you want to speak. Okay, Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. Just because this is a project that's in Ward 13, I wanted to share with you and with our colleagues a little bit of the background. So since November, I've heard from, I think, 71 residents of the neighborhood, either by phone or email, who all reached out to share that they're opposed to publicly subsidizing this project. And so I want to be clear that many of them are not opposed to the project itself, but in the West End, where we have seen rents skyrocket over the last decade, there's widespread concern with publicly subsidizing a project that can't offer a firm commitment on making some units on site affordable. The proposal from various places has been to the tune of like something in the 80 to 120% of the area median income. But I also want to be really clear that the developer in this case has been very forthcoming with the neighborhood and transparent with me about what's possible. So this isn't a case by any means. This is not a case of like good guys or bad guys or anything like that. And so while I can't support this vote for this TSA tonight, I just want to ask you, Madam President, and all of my colleagues that moving forward, two things. One, that we work together to define local community impact and community benefit in cases of public subsidy. That there's a growing gap between the rich and the poor across the city, across the country, that brings with it concerns of displacement for long-term residents. And it's not enough for public subsidies to make the promise of growing the tax base, right? That down the road, we've also got to define clearly tangible benefits to our residents that they can share in now. And then two, I'm committing tonight to work with all of you to engage in a big picture conversation about how our tax structure works or doesn't work for growing our economy and for our residents. This project is a good example, right? It's a moderate sized project. And for the math not to work without subsidy speaks to me to larger structural problems with the system overall. It's something that I think that we can dive into and have earnest conversation about. So I just wanted to share that and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councilor. Next I have Councilman Goncalves, then after would be Councilwoman LaFortune. Councilman Goncalves.
Madam President, I don't want to interrupt the meeting in the flow of the meeting right now, but before communications and reports, if it's possible, I'd like to speak on items 18 and 21, which are going to be important in the coming weeks. But again, I don't want to interrupt where we are right now. So
Councilman Goncalves, after this vote, I can give you a point of personal expression and you can speak at that time.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman LaFortune.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Councilwoman Miller, for always representing the voice of the community. I do want to, remind us all is that we have a TSA, a residential TSA ordinance that is sitting in the Finance Committee. And we have to think about development and residential development throughout the city. We do know that we have a significant shortage in housing stock. And if the supply is low, the demand is certainly going to be high. And as Councilwoman Miller stated, there is great disparity. The medium income household, when you don't include the East Side, is approximately $40,000 per year. And I believe I was looking at some data and just looking at the poverty rate within the city. 25% of our residents are experience poverty. And when you break it down by demographics, it's quite disproportionate. And so we definitely need to promote development. And, we also need to think about residential development because there is a need for it, a need for affordable housing. And affordable housing also applies to teachers and the workforce, because it's not affordable if you're paying over 30% of your income, your cost burden on housing. We also need to think about the middle income folks, that middle class, and also, high-end housing to attract a higher income or socioeconomic bracket that can reinvest and invest in the city. But I do hope that this can serve as a prime example of why we need to hear and have a robust discussion about the residential TSA, because what it does is it incentivizes development of affordable housing units. And until we have some sort of policy that is codified within the city, it is really hard for us to push and also attach it to development when it's not when it's not a law within our city. So I do hope that that's something that we consider. I thank Councilwoman Miller for her advocacy in terms of hearing the community. And it's wonderful to hear too that the developer has been transparent and has communicated and engaged with the community about the project. So that is greatly appreciated. But we do need to take housing development seriously. We need to think about ways to increase development and also incentivize development of affordable housing. But until we have some sort of codified law, it makes it quite difficult for us to impose those policies. So hopefully we'll hear that in committee, and I urge the community reach out and to ask for a hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I just want to do a check with Councilman Goncalves. You want to speak on this item right now? Okay, Councilman Goncalves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my colleagues have stated this so eloquently, but I agree with all their sentiments. And broadly speaking, neighborhoods in our constituents should have a greater voice in development projects so that they're truly a win-win for our city. So thank you, Councilman Miller and Councilwoman LaFortune for your remarks, and everyone who's engaged in this process.
Thank you. Any further discussion in this item? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council President Matos.
Aye.
Councilwoman Anthony.
Aye.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Aye.
I'm sorry, could you, thank you. Councilman Correa.
Aye.
Councilman Espinal.
Aye.
Councilman Gonsalves. Councilman Gonsalves.
On mute.
Sorry, I'm having some tech difficulties here. Sorry, I'm in a.
Are you voting aye or nay, sir, on this item, or would you like me to skip you?
Councilman Goncalves, we couldn't record your vote on this item. Are you voting aye or nay? Mr. Clerk, can you continue and we come back to Councilman Goncalves?
Sure. Councilwoman Harris.
Aye.
Councilman Igliozzi.
Aye.
Councilor Kerwin.
Aye.
Councilwoman LaFortune,
Aye.
Councilor Miller,
No.
Councilman Narducci,
Aye.
Councilwoman Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Salvatore,
Aye.
Councilman Taylor.
Aye.
I'll go back to Councilman Gonzalez, if we can get a vote. Otherwise, I will have to mark him absent on this item.
Councilman Goncalves?
I'm here. No.
You have 13 ayes and 2 noes. The matter passes for the first time on a roll call vote. Committee on Finance
you.
transmits the following.
Sorry, Sean, I just want to go to Councilman Goncalves. He has requested to address some of the items from before. Just want to give him the opportunity to speak. Councilman Goncalves. All right, so we're gonna continue. We come back to him because he's still having trouble. So can we continue? We come back to Councilman Goncalves after this next vote.
Sure. The Committee on Finance transmits the following with recommendation the same be severally approved.
Madam President,
Leader Ryan.
motion to waive the reading of items 30 and 31, pass on a voice vote, and refer back to the Board of Contract and Supply.
Second.
Motion has been a second to waive the readings of item number 30 and 31. These items are going to be passed on a voice vote and will be referred back to the Board of Contract and Supply. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilman Goncalves, is your audio working now?
Can everyone hear me now?
Now, yes. Yes, you wanted to address 2 items that we passed earlier. So you want a point of personal expression?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. I want to speak to items 18 through 21. First of all, I want to thank you all for urging Providence voters to support these bond initiatives around education, affordable housing, green infrastructure, and transportation in our city. If approved by voters, question number 2, if my memory serves me well here, is 74 million in a bond that will include 4 million for the proposed park on the former I-195 land, and funding for the proposed park is going to be crucial, as well as what else it will entail, including local recreation projects, dredging of the Providence River, restoration of some natural wetlands, municipal resiliency projects, and money that would go towards funding for the Woonasquatucket Greenway. Question number 5 includes 15 million of critical funding for early childhood care and the Educational Capital Fund. Lastly, question number 3 entails affordable housing that is much needed in the city of Providence. So all of the bond measures are of utmost importance, but it's critically important that we elevate these important initiatives around green infrastructure, education, and affordable housing. And I hope all of us in our capacity as elected officials will urge our constituents and voters to do everything that they can to vote for these critical investments in our communities for years to come. And then lastly, very quickly, I would like to thank the United Way of Rhode Island, Courtney Nicolato and her team, for unveiling its 5-year strategic plan entitled Live United 2025, which sets out an ambitious goal to invest $100 million to affordable housing and education and racial equity. So I want to congratulate them and affirm our support as the City Council to achieving some of these underlying goals. in their plan and for helping us to address the systemic challenges and inequities that we experience in our city. So with that, Madam Chair, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilman. I see that Leader Ryan, your hand is up.
My hand is not up.
Okay, all right. But now we go back to Mr. Clark.
It is me, Deputy Majority Leader's hand.
Oh, I'm
is up.
sorry. Sorry. Deputy Majority
May I
Leader.
have the floor?
Sure.
May I have
Go
the
ahead.
floor?
Yes, you do.
First of all, I want to thank Councilman Gonzalez for his effort around these different things that's appearing on the bond. But I want you to think strategically about what happened to 2016 bond that the constituents voted on. I don't want to be like a type of person that appear that I'm not supporting affordable housing. But now do I want not my neighbors or myself to be deceived or bamboozled by what we talk about when we speak of affordable housing. My concern, and it has been since that bond passed, what happened to it? How many houses was actually created? Now we're going all around the loop. And Councilman Gonzalez, you was not present on the board when I have to deal with the public who did not understand the fact that the Fame Tower catastrophe was something that did not belong to some stranger that's coming in and trying to build on profit, but for a state and a city that have never considered the fact that we have the lowest stock of housing and have not been building for years. But we see these things. You know, as I stand on the ground in my category, in my class category, along with others that I serve, and I sit at the table and I do not try to pretend I'm something that I'm not. Really, I don't. I come to the table as someone who truly, truly know that these needs are here. I will truly, truly continue to try to build and try to get people to understand that we've been yelling for years as ants, as the elephants continue to bring rules down. Nothing have ever reached us. People who are in that category are just being on the bounds of being displaced. I want you to know that I came from the South in my early age as a young person, went to the elementary schools. I moved from the South to South Providence. There's no greater love that I have than in my area that I serve. No greater love. But you know what bothers me most, Councilman, is watching people with their heads on the ground. It wasn't about the Fame Tower. Who can afford to live in our city and pay money is all right with me. But what about the people at the bottom? Let's really be strategic. Let's not just focus on things because they put it out there, but let's hold people accountable. I ask my constituents to do that for me, to make sure that they hold me accountable. I'm not there to be just trying to run a popularity contest or pass as many policies. I have to be there because I'm there for the people. Let's get serious about what happened to that last bond money. I've been questioning for 2 years, and I want all my council people to start asking the same question. What happened to that money? What did it create? Where's the housing? I do that know one of my housing agency in my ward has a lawsuit that's down, way down somewhere else. I don't want to call the name and make a mistake, but they're still in a lawsuit in that same bond money. 10% law that is supposed to be at the State House, that every area is supposed to bear some affordable housing. That's not happening. So we can sit here and we can just whatever, but if it's not tangible, Councilman Miller said, and it's not reaching the people, I don't know what else to say, but let us really be strategic about how we talk about that. I mean, no, let's try to push our people to vote for that, but let's also hold the people accountable from Rhode Island Housing to Congress, wherever that money is or wherever, because Councilman Gonzalez, I've been looking for that for all the, way before the pandemic. I even asked you to come and try to help me track it. They can't track it. Where's the transparency? So let's just not be thinking that things are really meeting the needs of the people. It is not. And I thank you for bringing it up. That gave me the opportunity to say, let us really track what happened to the last bond money inside, but let's also fight that we do have it. But let's make sure that things are done in accountability way. You know what I mean? I've been watching politics lately for the last 2 years. I'm telling you, from what I've been seeing, we got to do better. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for putting these out there. And if I have not co-signed these, I will, Madam President. Thank you for letting me have the floor. Thank you, Councilman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Deputy Majority Leader Harris. So with that, we go back to Sean for item 32.
Item 32, resolution memorializing the General Assembly to enact legislation authorizing the City of Providence to...
Madam President,
Leader Ryan.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of item 32 and pass in a roll call vote.
Second.
Motion has been made on second to waive the reading of item number 32, and this was going to be passed on a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk.
Council President Matos.
Aye.
Councilwoman Anthony.
Aye.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Aye.
Councilman Correa.
Aye.
Councilman Espinal.
Aye.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris.
Aye.
Councilman Igliozzi.
Aye.
Councilor Kerwin.
Aye.
Councilwoman LaFortune.
Aye.
Councilor Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Narducci.
Aye.
Councilwoman Ryan.
Aye.
Councilor Salvatore.
Aye.
Councilman Taylor.
Aye.
You have 15 ayes and no nays. The matter passes on a roll call vote. Transmits the following with recommendation the same be severally received and approved.
Leader Ryan.
Motion to waive the reading of items 33 through 36 and receive and approve.
Second.
The motion has been made on second to waive the readings of item number 33 through 36, and these items are going to be received and approved. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah, I have it.
Committee on Ordinances, Councilwoman Joanne Ryan, Chairwoman, transmits the following without recommendation, as amended. Item 37, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 16, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provision, Article 2, entitled Discrimination of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence by amending Section 16-54, Definition of Terms, 16-55, Unlawful Housing Practices, 16-63, Function and Duties of Commission, and 16-64, Powers of Commission, and 16-65, Certification of Bona Fide Qualifications.
Madam President.
Deputy Majority Leader Harris.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass this for the first time, send it back to the Ordinance Committee in order to be fully vetted by the committee itself, and then return to the full council for second vote.
So is the motion, Madam President?
Can I get a second? Is there a second for the motion so I can stay discussion?
Can I just?
Second. I seconded the motion.
Okay, motion has been made a second. Councilman Narducci, you have a clarification question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that the motion was to send it back to the Ordinance Committee.
The motion was to pass for the first time on a roll call vote and send it back to the committee on ordinances.
In order for the committee itself to have a vetting process, have opportunity for vetting process.
Motion's been made and seconded.
The motion has been made and second. I have several discussions. I see Councilwoman, Deputy Majority Leader Harris, you spoke. Councilwoman Anthony.
With your permission, I'd like to allow Councilor Miller to speak first.
Okay, Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to share a little bit of background about the ordinance and some of the discussion we've had already in committee. So I introduced this ordinance on March 21st of 2019. And since then, we've had full discussions in committee, and we've taken comments from the public, we've taken letters from the public. We've discussed at length the merits of the ordinance. And so I just want to share a little bit about that discussion with all of my colleagues who don't have the benefit of serving on that committee. So what this ordinance does is it says that landlords must accept as cash any lawful income of a prospective tenant. So that includes child support, it includes alimony, veterans assistance, Social Security income, SSI, disability payments, and it includes the housing choice vouchers, which are also known as Section 8. In committee, we heard that right now it is perfectly legal for a landlord to deny a tenant an apartment solely based on their income. And in fact, you can see it on Craigslist where apartments are advertised explicitly saying no Section 8, for example. In committee, we heard from people with disabilities. We heard from people who have experienced homelessness. We heard from people who currently and previously use housing choice vouchers, all of whom spoke in favor of this ordinance. All of them shared a time when a landlord turned them down solely because of the source of their rent check. We heard from landlords who have current and recent experience, in particular with the housing choice program. And they spoke about the ease of use with the Providence Housing Authority. They spoke about the good thing of being able to know, at least from those tenants, that they would be able to depend on a rent check every month without fail, without doubt. I know there's been times when my own landlord in years past would have enjoyed that same benefit. But we also heard we heard from landlords who spoke against this ordinance. And we did get a chance to really vet and discuss their concerns in committee. So just three thoughts from that conversation. The first, we discussed that this ordinance does not create a mandate at all. So landlords can vet prospective tenants in all of the ways that they currently do, right? Like a credit check or references. They just can't use their source of income to deny them an apartment. We discussed absolutely that this ordinance does not require landlords to set a certain rent or to change how much they're offering their apartment for. We learned that some forms of assistance do require an inspection, but that inspection is just code enforcement, just what's already the law. And this isn't my preference, but this is how it is in the ordinance, that if the landlord cannot, for whatever reason, come up to code, if they have a problem with their building, they're not forced to by this ordinance. Unfortunately, in those cases, they would have to seek another tenant. In committee, we discussed how 15 states and Washington, D.C., including Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, all have a source of income ordinance, state law on the books, and that 76 counties and cities around the country have a similar ordinance on the books. We also heard from a testifier who shared with us that the Federal Housing Administration actually recommends that localities pass ordinances like this to expand housing choice, to expand housing opportunity. So in addition to the residents and landlords and everyone I already mentioned, we've received a lot of letters from organizations that work with and on behalf of many residents of our city, including the ACLU, Homes RI, Coalition for the Homeless, DARE, Coalition Against Domestic Violence, LISC, United Way, many others. The senior staff at the Providence Housing Authority made themselves available to answer questions in committee in private conversation multiple times. And so I just want to say I have the utmost respect for my colleagues. In this case, I believe we have vetted this ordinance. And I want to say that not taking action, it's been very nearly 2 years. And I just want to say that not taking action has an impact, right? So just today, someone shared a story with me of a woman who lived on the south side. She had a single mom with 3 kids. She rented a house. She had a housing voucher. She was deeply tied, deeply connected to the community. 3 kids in local school. They attended the community center. Her landlord sold the house, and the new landlord did not accept her voucher. She couldn't find an apartment in the city of Providence that would take her and her family. She had to uproot her family. She had to move to Pawtucket with her family. Today in Providence, right now today, there are 57 housing choice voucher holders who do not currently have a lease, do not currently have an apartment. Of those 40 people have been searching for more than 60 days. And as we learned in committee, once it goes beyond 120 days, when someone is searching with that voucher for 120 days, they risk losing it because there's a lot of people on that list who want that voucher. Many of those 57 people right now are homeless. They are living in shelters. They are living in apartments. This ordinance, the impact it has on the people it impacts is profound, it's positive, it's urgent, and it's deep. And it's one small piece of the puzzle, like our big housing puzzle, but for those it impacts, it has a deep, deep impact. So, again, I'm respectfully asking my colleagues to reject this motion, to let us then vote on and pass for the first time this well-discussed and well-vetted ordinance that has been before us for very nearly 2 years. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next, I have Councilwoman Anthony.
Yes, thank you so much, Council President. I am very, very supportive of this ordinance and thank Councilor Miller for her shepherding and stewarding this ordinance through the committee. But I too agree, this is exactly what Councilman Salvatore has been talking about in the rules change. This has been held up in committee. We have had 2 full committee meetings on this matter. And I am sorry, it may be a difficult thing for people to vote on, but the fact is, this has been fully vetted. I attended both meetings. The first meeting, we had a huge showing, a lot of testimony. I can't imagine what else people need to hear to make this decision. And the fact that our committee members want to refer this back to committee is just unacceptable. This is holding us up in terms of passing legislation, and it just can't be. So it's frustrating. I'm just going to say that we would refer this back to committee. So I am speaking against this motion and urging us to pass this on a voice vote for the first time tonight.
Council President, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Councilwoman Castillo, I see your hands, but I have a list of people. I'm going to tell you where you're going to go in the order, right? So I have Councilwoman LaFortune, Councilman Salvatore, Councilman Espinal, Councilor Kerwin, Deputy Majority Leader Mary Kay Harris, and then Councilwoman Castillo. Okay.
Thank you, Council President. So we have been talking about this. We've heard people from the community's voices who have shared that they personally and many households within our community have experienced or face housing discrimination because they hold a voucher. And this is not something that is unique to Providence. This is a national issue, which is why many municipalities like California, like DC, like Cranston, have passed this piece of legislation. and have adopted, this law to prohibit housing discrimination based on source of income. And source of income include housing choice voucher, Social Security, or disability. Source of income is a protection, and it's invaluable in maximizing a voucher family's ability to secure safe and sustainable housing. During the hearing, I know someone brought up the fact that, we already have the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which is, as many of you know, the key federal civil rights law. However, we have to remember the Fair Housing Act of 1968 has there are seven characteristics that are protected. It's race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, or national origin. Source of income is not one of them. So people can be discriminated based on their source of income. Which is why we have to vote on this. We have to support this. What's the irony of all of this is that we have an anti-displacement, a draft report that's out there, right? And this piece of legislation actually supports, right? This is a policy, right, that supports anti-displacement. Similar to Councilwoman Miller, I have families in my ward who can pay their rent because of a voucher or another source of income that might not be from a particular employer. I remember there's a family and a high school student was getting certain services at his high school, which they had to move. And because they had a hard time finding housing, they had to move out of the city. And which means that the services that young man was receiving, he would no longer receive. And also the parent would have to find alternative services for them. And we already know, we've talked about, the needs and resources our students, particularly our students of marginalized identities and families of marginalized identities, need to succeed. So having this policy has long-term impact. It's a domino effect. It serves families. It stabilizes our housing market, and it's also the right thing to do. Housing is a right. It's a human right. Everyone should have access to housing if they have, and if they have a source of income, they should not, and a legal source of income, they should not be denied housing. I mean, I spoke earlier. The median income household in the city of Providence is approximately $40,000. A majority of our residents are in poverty, and the communities that are in poverty and most impacted by poverty are communities of color. Councilman Igliozzi always talks, and when he talks about the inequities within his own community, he talks about single mothers. Do you know there is approximately 47% of our residents are single parents and they live in poverty? So very similar to Councilwoman Miller's story, the family, the single parent household family that I spoke about, mothers are struggling. They're trying to provide their children with housing. We don't want to see our families in homeless shelters. We want to provide them this level of stability. And there's correlation between housing and other outcomes, right? Housing, if you have housing, you have better health outcomes, you have better education outcome, you have better employment outcome. So we need to ensure that all residents in Providence have fair access to housing. It is a human right. I'm having a hard time understanding why we have to send this back to committee if we've been having discussion after discussion. I've received over, I think close to 100 emails of people advocating for this. It is a need. And if we are here and if we're being held accountable and we're here to represent our constituents, the people who live in our community, then it is our responsibility to vote on this, do first passage and vote, and not refer it back to committee. So I am also in opposition of the motion to return it back to committee. And I hope that we can vote, do first passage and vote on it tonight. And so that we can vote on it a second time to pass it into law. Because our community, our residents deserve this. Everyone who lives in the city of Providence deserve a fair chance to housing. Thank you. And I hope my colleagues support this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next, I have Councilman Salvatore, following by Councilman Espinal, Kerwin, Harris, Castillo, Goncalves, Iglesias, and Taylor. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Madam President. No, I'm 45 years old. I've called Providence my home my entire life. And I've always been proud to call Providence home because I've always considered the capital city to be the leader of our state. And lately, I haven't seen a lot of leading. And it was mentioned before that the town of Barrington has passed this ordinance. The city of Cranston has passed this ordinance, although it was vetoed by Mayor Fung. We're not even following. We're doing nothing. And the fact that we would consider sending this back to committee after dozens and dozens of our constituents have reached out to us and indicated their strong support is disheartening. I represent a neighborhood, the Wanscook neighborhood, which is in the top five out of 26 neighborhoods in Providence that utilize 52% of the vouchers available in the capital city. Now, I welcome folks who use housing vouchers in my neighborhood. And I tip my cap to the landlords in the Wanscook neighborhood who are accepting of their tenants who utilize a housing voucher to pay their rent. But I agree with the chairwoman of the committee. She indicated at the last meeting that this item has been vetted and there's no reason why it shouldn't come out of committee for a full vote. This speaks to what I talked about earlier. A majority of our residents want this legislation passed. We're not leading, we're not following, and here we are having the same discussion again. And it is a tough vote for some people, and I can appreciate that. But leave it to the majority of the council members who are in support, who are speaking for their constituents. You know, I heard during the committee some falsehoods about this measure and the fact that rents would increase as a result. Let me be very clear. I spent the last 2 days, several hours, researching literature on this matter. There is no evidence, no scientific evidence that states or that validates that claim that rents will increase. In fact, you're providing more housing opportunities. By delaying this, you're preventing that single mother in the Wanscook neighborhood who wants to live in another part of the city because they need access to a public transit line to get to work. You are preventing that single mother from getting to her job, from exploring other employment opportunities. So folks, we can't do nothing. We have to be leaders. I don't want to be a follower. This law is going to protect people who have housing vouchers. It's okay to pay your rent with a housing voucher. All it means is a landlord cannot turn away an applicant simply because he or she has a housing voucher to pay their rent. It doesn't mean that a landlord can't deny a prospective tenant's application for the same valid reason that a landlord might deny other applications, such as a negative prior landlord history or a problematic criminal background check. Now, it's my hope that landlords would be sympathetic and give people a second chance. But in fact, if a landlord is not treating a prospective tenant who holds a housing voucher the same as other applicants, that landlord is going to risk fair housing violations based on other reasons. And I'm not going to get into the reasons tonight, but if I were a landlord in that situation, I would be very, very careful about denying somebody housing because they're paying with guaranteed income. It's my hope that my colleagues vote against this motion, and let's vote for this matter for the first time on a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Councilman Espinal, then Kerwin, Harris, Castillo.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the opportunity, members of the Providence City Council. And thank you to all my colleagues that have spoken in favor of the source of income ordinance. I want to echo their expressions, especially Councilman Salvatore, because there have been a lot of misleading information out there. They even said that this creates a financial impact on the city. And I like that this time turned to City Solicitor Jeffrey Dana and asked Mr. Dana if this actually creates a financial impact on our city.
Chair, may I point of order? Point of order.
Councilwoman Deputy Majority Leader Harris, yeah.
For this reason, we're having this discussion. That's the reason we have to go back. I support this ordinance 100%. I support this. However, I have questions like everybody else, and I feel like this is not the place to do it. This is a place for the people's business, not to have vetting over this ordinance. I don't understand what my colleagues are saying right now. I really don't. They're preaching to the choir, but I have concerns and nobody have given me an opportunity to put my concerns out. Yes, Councilwoman Miller is right. We've been through a lot with this ordinance. We was even meeting together to try to figure it out, but this is not right. I represent the poorest community. I was a voucher holder. I raised my kids on vouchers. I don't think any of you have ever had a Section 8 voucher. So I want to make sure that when we do this, we get it right. We get it right. I'm uncomfortable. I have some questions, and I was denied the rights to answer my questions because all of a sudden it made it back after the pandemic into the ordinance committee. It was moved out, and I don't think that's the way we do business. That's the only reason I want to say that. I was at the table with Councilwoman Miller when this conversation started. She know that what my background is. She know that I'm not against this voucher, but I had not had a chance to even talk about the concerns I have as represent people in my community with my class status and my income status. I am looking out for those people. They come first. And I'm gonna tell you, when I do anything, I do it through a racial equity lens. And so if you can satisfy me, I had to do the same thing when this council body voted for the plastic bag. That vote was 13 people, but I turned to the sponsor, I said, I'm uncomfortable. We have to talk about something. That we would have been the first one to pass the plastic bags. Respect me. Don't disrespect me. Don't disrespect the people who have actually lived in this shoes. Don't try to say that you lived it if you never lived it. Please respect me. Respect the fact that we're being displaced out of our neighborhoods. I worry about that every day. A place that I'm so accustomed to, the place that I'm used to, South Providence. I hear stuff about, oh, we're supposed to do this way. What is the committees for? Am I wasting my time? Because I'm a hard worker. I go to these committees to really, really do the best for my community and for my constituents and for people who look like me and people who are in my wage category, for people who have had my income status. The only reason people use a voucher is because it's a substitute between the fact that you don't get paid for what you're worth. It all starts from a vicious cycle. It all starts from racism. It all starts from everything. You got to understand who you're talking to here. If I ask you to please listen to some of my concerns and you don't do it, you're disrespecting me and everybody in my shoes. So that's all I have to say. That's the only reason I put that out. I wasn't trying to hold it up. I handled it. We've been through a pandemic. I got some more questions. The pandemic means something different. And I have questions that I never got a chance to answer. And I don't want to be appearing like I don't support it or my colleagues on that team don't support it. That was wrong for the way it was put out there. I got insulted by it, and I'm insulted tonight for people who sit and tell me how I'm supposed to think when I have been through my own experience, living the life. I'm not there to play games or put out fancy ordinance or have my name on things that's fancy. I'm there to actually change lives of people. But I want to make sure that when I do it and when I vote on something, it's because my conscience are clear with it. Don't underestimate that I'm pushing back on anything, and do not go to my community and tell my community that I'm against vouchers when that's the way I raised my kids. And I had to find quality houses. I've been fighting for housing for years. I had to, in order for them to get a great education. I've been through a lot in life as a single mom. So don't be telling me about my experience. And by the way, I'm 65, Mr. Salvatore. Let me tell you, and my experience have been real. I came in this council. I didn't come in this council to be a politician. I came here to think about the people. So please, when I'm hesitating on something, please try to figure out what it is without bashing me or running to my community members and trying to say that I don't support something that you don't know nothing about. May I ask that you excuse my behavior? I'm very passionate when it comes down to fighting for the poor. I fight for the poor because, hey, by the grace of God, here on I. That's the way I live my life. So in all respect, I have to respect you, but I don't want to hear no more about trying to sell the committee, the concern. You never let the committee, you allowed the public to speak. That's all well and good. I always listen to the public. I got tons and tons of email from people I don't even know them by name, never even heard of the people. And I've been in my community for over 50 something years or more. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm sorry for my emotions. I just don't like it when I feel like this stuff is just really being rammed down your throat. You're not getting a chance. I want to talk about equity. I want to talk about gentrification. I want to talk about displacement. I want to talk about the things that are affecting my neighborhood. You have not been able to prove that. I mean, I would like to talk, and now we have one of our colleagues calling on a solicitor. Is this the place to do this? This is a people business. We're supposed to handle this in committees. I'm gonna tell you something. If it doesn't happen that way, please, I will give up some committees, and you guys can have them, whatever committees you want, because I'm not there to waste my time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Councilman Espina, you had the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can certainly understand and our colleague Harris' emotions. It's a very touchy subject. I can certainly understand that. But I also speak on behalf of the families that are in shelters. I speak on behalf of those families that are living with someone else. Because they have not been able to find a home, especially in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, there is a lack of housing, there's a housing crisis, and there's also lots of families with vouchers out there, but have not had the opportunity to find a home because there are people that actually today can tell them that they will not rent to people with Section 8. And I just want to make clear that it doesn't add an impact, financial impact to the city. I want to put myself that on record. It does not dictate what a landlord can or cannot charge for his or her apartment. After all, it's private property. Those are facts. And also a fact is that there are over 1,000 landlords already in the city of Providence taking advantage of this program. And there are over 2,000 vouchers holders out there. So I get it. It's a very serious situation, but we must not forget those that are out there hurting. At this point, well, we're having this passionate discussion. There are families out there that don't have a shelter, don't know where they will sleep tomorrow. So I get the rules and everything. And sometimes when we're dealing in public discussion like this, we don't expect things to be perfect or to go perfect. But what we are expected to do is the right thing to the people that sent us into office. So I must advocate on behalf of the people of Ward 10. There are many people in Ward 10 that are renting through Section 8, and there are also just as many that would like to rent but don't have that ability because they've been denied housing. So those are the people that I'm speaking on behalf today. Yeah, we have a decision to make, but we must not leave them behind. I'm here to represent them, and we'll find a way to get through this. I think we all know that the right thing to do is to actually vote yes on this, is to pass a source of ordinance that no one should be discriminated, regardless where their income comes from, provided that it is legally attained. And this is what this is. So with that, I thank you so much, Madam President and members of the council, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So next I have Councilor Kerwin. Councilor Kerwin, I know that Councilwoman Castillo has been waiting. Can I just go to Councilwoman Castillo, then I'll come back to you because I don't want to forget she's not showing in the hands, okay? Thank you. Councilwoman Castillo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I heard a lot of discussion in this matter. I want to clarify, like my colleague, Medicaid Harris, we support the voucher. We don't say like we don't want to support the voucher because the way the other speak, it's like we against that voucher. It's not true. I represent a lot of people, poor people, community people. They don't understand. And also, we have a lot of workers in this city for minimum wage. That people don't be available to Section 8, but they still be a poor people because they make 5 cents and they don't apply for voucher. I believe, it's more discussion, like Medicaid say, when we have the plastic bag, we pass in there, we do property, we prepare the people how can do it. So now everybody puts here like we support that, we don't support. And that's not true, okay? So working people can be moved to the city of Providence because they can qualify for housing voucher. We don't say like for the pandemic, break my heart because still my father be in the hospital in the bad situation and my whole family have a COVID. And I know how strong it is that be sick with COVID. And I understand there's a lot of people in the street, there's a lot of people need a housing. I really understand. But I don't understand why, they say like, we don't support a housing voucher and the rent don't go out because how you know the rent don't go out? Because you may like something in your neighborhood, come to South Side, come to this side, and come to see the people in this side. Come to the workers here to minimum wage. They can be available to pay apartment in the city of Providence. So for my concern, I don't want to take the motion for the floor because I believe we don't say we don't pass it. We can go back to there, make other meeting, a public hearing or whatever, and do the right thing to don't affect a group of people. Because I understand we want to give it the voucher for these people and save these people, but we affect the other group of people. And I don't have a face to say to one that woman have 3 kids can qualify for Section 8. Move away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm gonna go back to Councilor Kerwin.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. So, I mean, I think it's abundantly clear. All of our colleagues, we have our constituents' best interests at heart. No one wants to see people in our community on the streets. No one wants to see people get turned down from apartments. Of course, we all believe that our neighbors should have access to Section 8 vouchers and people shouldn't be denied apartments because of Section 8 vouchers. This is abundantly clear. I'm not going to keep going on and on. You know, what Councilwoman Harris said is correct. You know, we have said this a lot. I don't know if anyone's going to change their mind tonight. What I will say, I'm going to be denying this motion, and I'm going to be doing it because there's a coalition of over 40 groups that supports this and is trying to see this happen, not just here in Providence, but at the state level. And I think it really, really hurts this campaign at the state level when the capital city isn't able to prove that. And so I think, you know, a headline like this is going back to committee would really, really hurt this campaign statewide. And I think right now, it's particularly because legislators are in legislative session, it's really important to send a strong message that that this is happening and that we do support this ordinance here in Providence. And I also think, you know, the reality of it is, you know, we've spent 2 years talking about this. I think for me, my neighborhood is well over majority renters. I've had people call me this week from River Ave, from Goddard, from Zone, from Bath, people that are like, hey, I'm a renter, or hey, I live in an owner-occupied home and I want this to happen. So, you know, I think the community support is overwhelming. I think all of our hearts are in the right place. But I think we should let this go to the floor for a vote because, you know, let's see what happens, and let's send a strong message to the state that this is how we're going to lead the way.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm going to go to Councilman Narducci because he has been waiting. He was not using the hand feature. Sorry about that. Councilman Narducci.
I just, you know, I'm hearing all this housing, and first of all, this particular ordinance does not create housing. My second issue I have with this particular ordinance, and I said it from the start, which has got my mind boggled, is it doesn't apply to owner-occupied properties. So an owner-occupied house can discriminate against a Section 8 voucher or any source of income, but an absentee landlord, which is what I call them, I'm sorry, has to abide by this particular ordinance. I think if we're looking at this ordinance to be fair to our people that we serve, because I don't know, I think sometimes people think the Fourth Ward is full of money. Well, we're not. We're not. I got numerous voucher holders. I got numerous veterans. I got people living paycheck to paycheck, as in many of our other wards, including myself. I agree with Councilwoman Harris. I've been there. My mother raised 7 of us. 7 of us. And there was times we didn't know what we were going to eat or when we were going to eat. So I think if we're going to do an ordinance like this, then it has to be fair across the board. I'm not looking to hurt anybody. I think everybody deserves a home. I don't think anybody deserves to be discriminated against. I never did, and I never will. We were not brought up that way. My kids are not brought up that way. But to move this forward the right way, I will agree sending it back to committee because of the fact, again, and I'll repeat myself, is the person that owns that 3-family house can tell a Section 8 person or a veteran or a whatever other source of income is, we don't want to rent here. That's okay. But a guy that owns a 3-family house that doesn't live in it has to abide by this. Let's be fair. Let's be fair across the board. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Going back to the hands raised that I see here, I have Councilman Goncalves, then I will have Councilman Taylor. I see Councilwoman LaFortune, but Chairman Iglesias has his hands up and he hasn't spoken, so following the rules, he's gonna call first. So again, I have Goncalves, Taylor, Iglesias, and LaFortune. Councilman Goncalves.
And I
Great.
think if somebody has already spoke, they should be eligible to speak again on the same matter.
They can speak after everybody else that wants to speak has had a chance. So that's why I'm gonna let Councilman Iglesias speak first. Councilman Goncalves.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Harris, I want to thank you for your authentic remarks and emotions, and I can't thank you enough. And I look forward to talking to you more about how we advance equity in our city. And I'm in no position to tell anyone else that they're wrong on this issue. But tonight, we have the opportunity to do the right thing for those who are hurting in our communities. No Section 8. Imagine being a Section 8 holder and hearing that. And again, being on Section 8. A single parent mother with children on Section 8, how do you think they feel? And think about those who are already disproportionately affected, our Black and Brown communities. This is about racial and economic justice. So let's face it, redlining, racist effects, as you mentioned, have lasted for decades. The effects of source of income discrimination have lasted for decades. And I agree with Councilwoman Miller and some of our colleagues tonight that we need to pass this tonight. This doesn't need to go to committee. It's already been vetted. And I too have heard so many stories from people in our community who are supporting this. And there's lots of people who are supporting this. So we really need to step up and support them. And if we're allowing the status quo to continue and to allow, quite frankly, racist and discriminatory practices prevail against people on the basis of their race and their color, and also their source of income, that is wrong. So let's have a moral compass. We can do this. Tonight, we have a historic opportunity to stand up for the tenants of the city of Providence. We have a historic opportunity to ensure that no one in our city, absolutely no one in our city, is discriminated against based on their source of income. We have a historic opportunity to pass this tonight. So let's lead and let's pass this tonight. And I just want to thank you, Councilor Miller, all of the councilors who are in support of this ordinance, and to all of the advocates and the people who believe that we should end discrimination based on the source of income. Let's do this tonight, and let's please pass this. With that, I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councilman Taylor, you're next.
Thank you. I agree. I mean, a lot has been said tonight. I agree with Councilman Mill, LaFortune, Espinal, Goncalves, but I mostly agree with Councilman Salvatore and Councilman Goncalves just said it. We have a chance here to lead, and we need to lead. It's been in the whatchamacallit for 2 years. I myself didn't make the last ordinance hearing, but I don't know if he's on or not on, but I talked to Peter Asen today for over an hour on pros and cons questions that I heard, and he answered my questions. And that's what I do when I don't know something 100%, then I reach out to people that know it a lot better than me. And that's what I did. And he straightened me out on, because that's what he does. He works with the housing, and he told me about all the vouchers, and it was shocking because, you know, you hear numbers, but when you actually hear the numbers of people waiting for housing and different things, it's amazing. And we do have as Councilman Salvatore says, we don't always agree. I don't always agree with Councilman Salvatore, but I will put on record, I agree 100% with him on this. that we have a chance to lead. I mean, I look at, it's been in there for 2 years. I look at the sponsors. I don't know what changed. I mean, Councilman Harris, Councilwoman Castillo, you were on that as original sponsor. I don't see anything that's really changed to make us go back into ordinance. And what angers me is in the statewide, not in the city, but when you know, the House will pass something and then they throw it into the Senate and then it goes into committee and we forget about it. And I have a feeling that that's where this is going. I don't want it to go that way. It's been vetted twice. We've listened to it, and let's vote on it. And I use Councilman Salvatore's words. Let's lead. Thank you, Councilman Salvatore, for those words.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. So next, I'm going to go to Chairman Iglesias.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everybody. First of all, I just want to make sure this is an ordinance that needs two passages. Tonight is the request to make a first passage, and what the motion before us is to make a first passage and forward it back to committee, and then the additional vetting, and then come back out. Just want to make sure I got that right. Second thing is, one thing I think is interesting, that it's kind of like there's an argument going on in this full council, but yet it's really a weird argument because the whole council seems to be in support of this entire ordinance. That seems to be factual. It's just question on how we all get our oars rowing in synchronicity, and as we continue to move up the stream together. I can tell you from I support it. The issue is I'm going to kind of catch 22. I have an utmost respect for my council colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And I've known Councilwoman Harris a very, very long time. And I have unbelievable amount of respect for her. And when she talks or speaks, and Councilwoman Castillo also, I have utmost respect. I always take a moment to stop and just listen to what they're saying, because I can't always empathize, but I can sympathize, because sometimes I didn't live through some of the stuff that they went through. My parents did and my grandparents did, but personally, I didn't have the same struggles. So I try to always be reflective on that. I think that's interesting. So I want to put that in perspective for everybody. And I'm going to get back to the second thing was I did have a conversation with Councilman Espinal, and he explained to me a lot of the ins and outs of this proposal, which sounds like it's pretty, it sounds like it's pretty put together. He said he was going to reach out to the law department, and the law department was substantiating the fact that I guess the way it works, and Councilman Espinal, I hope I'm not misquoting, but pretty much is that the big question I had was, does the person who has a Section 8 voucher, if a landlord's renting their apartment for $1,000 and a person has $800 in Section 8, does that mean the landlord has to lower their rent? I didn't know. And he said, no, it doesn't. It just means they can't discriminate against them as a valid legal form of currency to pay the rent. And I hope I got that right. And that seems to me, is that correct, Councilman Espinal? Did I get that right, sir?
That is correct, sir.
Right. And so he really educated me a lot about how that process works and stuff. So I really want to thank him on that. On the other things also, I also respect the committee process. And I know we've been hearing all this bantering back and forth, and I think it's interesting, and I'm not going to get into the details of that at this time. So this is where I am. I support this ordinance. So for me, I'm going to support both ways. I'm going to support and respect my council colleague, Councilwoman Harris and Castillo, who wants a first passage and send it back to committee. And if that fails, well, then if there's a motion to pass it, I'm going to vote on that and support that also. So for me, I'm going to vote both, and I'm going to put my hands on both oars and row in synchronicity with my council colleagues, Harris and Castillo, and show respect to them, and row with you folks and our constituents, row on the other side. Because I think it's important that we listen to our council colleagues, especially when they're so passionate and they have such personal stories and impact. To discount it or to devalue it is something I think we all need to take a little introspective. I don't think, and I do disagree with this, if there was, for the sake of conversation tonight, it was passed for the first time and sent to committee, the headline is the council passed it for the first time. It has to come back to the council floor at the next council meeting anyway. So that's 2 weeks away, Mr. Clerk? So either way, there's like a 2-week period. So in theory, if we passed it all tonight, went to committee, they had another hearing, and it gets bounced out, it'll be on for the second council meeting anyway, just like it would if it didn't go back to committee. But, so I'm just saying, for procedural wise, in theory, there's no harm, no foul. And all of us can join hands in respecting the issue, respecting each other, and moving forward together. Because clearly, my impression is the whole council's voting in the affirmative on this. So I don't see where we really have a disconnect. I think it's more about becoming a, too much of a, I don't know what it is, maybe political, whatever it is. But I just suggest, I want everybody to know that I'm going to support Councilwoman Harris's motion. And if it fails, I'm going to support the motion to pass it also. So for me, it's a win-win, because I want to show respect to my council colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you all.
Thank you. So next I have Councilwoman LaFortune. Is your hand up to speak, or you forgot to lower your hands from earlier?
It's up.
Okay, Councilwoman LaFortune.
Yeah,
Councilwoman
thank you.
LaFortune.
And I won't take too much time. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Harris and Councilwoman Castillo, for sharing your words. I have the utmost respect for the both of you, two strong women, single mothers who've raised their children within the community, who've been advocates, and who are examples for us in terms of the work that you have done within the community and your advocacy for the community. And I thank you for that. And I value you, and I hear you, and I appreciate you sharing your stories. And also, your stories are also the narratives of, they might not be exactly the same, but it's a narrative that's quite common within communities of color. As you all know, I grew up on the South Side, 85 Dartmouth Avenue, which is Councilwoman Harris's ward. And we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And it was about 7 or 8 of us who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment before my parents was able to save up enough money as CNAs, and my dad was a skycap, to purchase their house in Washington Park, which is my parents live in Councilwoman Castillo's ward now. This past December 31st made it 30 years since my parents have been in their house from a 1-bedroom apartment. In that 1-bedroom apartment is also where I got lead poison. And it was at St. Joseph's Hospital until from the time I was in pre-K until I believe 1st or 2nd grade that I was getting lead treatment for lead poison at St. Joe's. My family, we weren't on a voucher system or received a voucher or had any type of voucher assistance. And so you had this growing family where we only had 1 bedroom, multiple beds in a bedroom. There was a bed in the living room, there was a bed in the kitchen, and we all had a chair. And, I think about my own life growing, as an adult. I had my son at the age of 19. I was homeless at one point. In fact, I still remember, leaving work and trying to figure out where I was going to sleep that night. A lot of times luckily I had some friends that I would spend a night here at one friend's house, maybe spend a few days in another friend's house until I was able to save up to get my own apartment. And I also had a high-risk pregnancy. When I was pregnant with my son, which required me to get an amniocentesis, see a specialist. So I understand the challenges, and I wasn't a US citizen yet. I only held, I was a recent new, I recently, a few years prior, obtained legal status. And so with a high-risk pregnancy, pregnant at a young age, I was working 2 jobs. And trying to save up. So I do understand the challenges within our communities, communities of color. I've lived those challenges. I know what it means not to have access to housing. I know what it means to struggle. My family knows what it means. what this ordinance does, and I personally, and I don't think my colleagues are saying that anyone doesn't support it. What they're saying is that we, for a while, people have been advocating for this. The coalition or the groups that are sending letters, these individuals, these organizations, they also are meeting with people. They're representing folks who experience housing discrimination, who struggle to have access to housing and safe housing. And so what this is doing, again, is providing everyone a fair chance to have access to housing, and that they won't be discriminated against because of their source of income. And throughout this whole time, we focus on single parents, right? It's not just single parents who have housing vouchers. It's not just single parents or single mothers who receive SSI or disability. It's across the board, right? People need housing, whether they're Black, brown, whether they're immigrant or not, whether they're documented or undocumented, whether they're male, female, non-binary. Everyone has access to housing, and there isn't a law that protects them if they have some sort of my ward, right? Ward 3, folks who fall in the highest socioeconomic bracket. I also have subsidized housing units where people do use vouchers. So I do hope that we all can agree that we have been vetting this for quite some time. It's been in committee for a very long time. People have been advocating for this. We are the capital city. We are one of the most diverse city. Let us all be leaders and vote first passage and not send it back to committee. If we want to have additional conversations with constituents, we can do that on our own. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have plenty of discussion right now. I think it's time for us to have a vote on this. Mr. Clerk, can you please repeat?
Madam Chair, I must ask one more time because I did put the vote on the floor. I have to make clear that I was not trying to put that back into committee. We know in 2 weeks we'll be back into this thing. I don't want to lose out on an opportunity for us to really, really be sure about this thing. I want to say that I do understand vouchers because it's new money now. That's what's used in the fair housing. There is no any more sweat equity where people are able to develop these abandoned homes. There's no more of that. But what we have is a new type of funding. And I just want to make sure that when I vote, Councilwoman Miller, that I'm voting really because of my conscience and my morals and my principle. I voted against that smoking bill. And do you know how, for years, Councilwoman, I've been here trying to understand why this community got devastated. I already said, split on this in this room and said the same thing. Please don't don't vote on that smoking bill because you will send everybody to this ward. And sure enough, what am I supposed to do? Tell them they got to go to another ward? I've been working hard over here trying to do things and do it fairly, without pressing anyone. So I'm only asking that, and if you vote tonight and it does pass, I have to say that I want my name removed as co-sponsor because I'm uncomfortable because we did not get a chance to vet it that got hijacked out of the thing without us even having our final concerns. And you've seen how it left out of there, Councilwoman Miller. And I don't like the way it left out without us being able to have a voice as a committee. I go on those committees to work hard. We focus, we vet things through, and we come out feeling okay. All of us. I'm not saying I'm against this. I'm not against it, but I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable that we're doing it right. I say 2 weeks back on the floor. That's what I said. But thank you for giving me the time. And I just don't want you to put the rumor out that I'm against it. I just feel like something is a backfire to it. And I just want to make sure I'm all right. You know what I mean? I wanted to make sure I was all right with the smoking bill because I knew what was going to happen. I understand how people who have more can also push by good intentions, push people who have nothing completely out of the equation. The thing that's bothered me the most, I wasn't given a voice in that committee the last meeting we had after waiting so long to get back. And you know how much I wanted that voucher. And now I look like I'm a bad person because I can't speak up in a committee.
Madam President.
Madam President.
All right. So point of order. Almost everyone has had an opportunity to speak. If anyone is going to speak again, please, you have to be brief.
I will. I promise it will not take 30 seconds.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Councilman Espinal.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Clerk, item 29, am I correct to say that this is in regards to a TSA? Absolutely, right?
Point of order, Madam President.
Completely out of order.
No, I'm just saying.
Completely out of order.
You need to speak about the matter before us, Councilman.
Well, it has everything to do with it because when it came to that item, we actually went right through it, and the content of that item actually causes a financial burden to the city in the long run, but we passed it right away. But now when it comes to poor people that do not have a home, that all they're looking for is not to be discriminated against because of the source of income, look where we are. We have spent 2 hours going back and forth on this. It is time. Yeah. It is time that we vote on this item and put it to rest.
Then let's just
Thank
vote.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Salvatore, you're going to be brief, please.
Madam President, move the question. I agree.
I just want to be noted as a co-sponsor. That's
I think we've talked long enough.
Madam President.
So one person at a time. Councilman Salvatore wants to be listed as the co-sponsor. Thank you.
So, Madam President, I'm just going to be really quick. Again, I think you're being totally unfair. Not you personally. I'm sorry. I think it's totally unfair that, again, we're giving the owner-occupied landlords the right to discriminate, but yet not landlords that just own the property. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Clerk, could you please restate the vote for clarification for the members?
Yes, this is a vote to pass item 37 for the first time on a roll call vote and refer the item back to the Ordinance Committee for further discussion.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Council President Matos.
No.
Councilwoman Anthony.
Nay.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Aye.
Councilman Correa.
No.
Councilman Espinal.
No.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Nay.
Councilwoman Harris.
Yes.
Councilman Igliozzi.
Yes.
Councilor Kerwin.
No.
Councilwoman LaFortune.
No.
Councilor Miller.
Nay.
That was a nay, correct? Councilman Narducci.
Aye.
Councilwoman Ryan.
Yes.
Councilor Salvatore.
Nay.
Councilman Taylor.
Nay.
You have 5 ayes and 10 nays. The motion fails.
Is there another motion on the floor?
Madam President, I make a motion to pass this item for the first time on a roll call vote.
Second that motion, Madam President.
Okay, the motion has been made on second to pass this item for the first time on a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk, can you please?
Second by
President.
The second by
Correa.
Correa, Councilman Correa, sorry.
Madam President,
Councilman,
if there's still time, I don't believe my name is honored as a co-sponsor. If it's possible, I'd like to be on record as a co-sponsor, please,
okay,
if it is possible.
okay, Mr. Clerk, can you please take note of that?
Also
So,
myself. Also
and,
myself. Councilman Chase.
Goncalves and Taylor also.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'd like to be as a co-sponsor also.
Councilman Iglesias wants to be a co-sponsor.
Same request, Madam President.
Sorry? Who was the last person? I'm sorry, that spoke.
Correa.
Councilman Correa, yeah?
Yes.
You want to be co-sponsor?
Please.
Okay, Councilman Correa wants to be co-sponsor. Sorry, I didn't see you. So we have the motion on the floor and has been second. We are in, Leader Ryan.
Before we vote, Madam President, there was an amendment made by the sponsor, the primary sponsor, Councilwoman Miller, in committee, and I'm looking at the ordinance, and it doesn't appear that what is before the committee is the amended version. So I'm going to ask Councilwoman Miller to help me out here. An amendment on the floor of the last committee meeting was made to section 16-55, section 2A, striking the word or lawful source of income from section A. Is that correct, Councilwoman?
That is correct, Leader. And I will note that I did note with the clerk that there was this clerical error, that our packet didn't include this, and it has been corrected. So thank you so much, Leader.
Well, what is before the committee is the version that was not amended. So we need to amend it on the floor. So
Could I get clarification from the clerk about this?
Yes, it is my understanding that it's a clerical error. I think that it would be duplicative to be making an amendment that was already made and approved in committee and passed out of committee. We have corrected the clerical error, and the version showing on the open meetings portal at this time is correct, although the printed PDF version unfortunately had just switched where the change was.
All right, can I just get an opinion? Could I get an opinion from the solicitor about this, please?
What is the question?
if I may,
As far as open meetings, there's no problem with compliance with Open Meetings Act based on what was posted.
but what was posted Mr. Solicitor, is a version that was not amended on. The amended version in council was not what was posted with 48 hours notice. And my understanding, and I certainly yield to you, that is a violation of the open meetings rule, on that the version that this body is voting on needs to be posted 48 hours. It's a modest change, but nonetheless, it's a significant change for the version that's up at the State House. And that was where the request came from. So it would be comport to the state version.
No, so this was a question posed to us earlier today. And based on our review of the Open Meetings Act, the fact that the agenda was compliant with the Open Meetings Act satisfies the Open Meetings Act. We don't find that the appendices needing to be substituted at the meeting cause any violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Councilman Adichie.
Just quick, and again, I'd like to see an amendment made that includes owner-occupied homes to not be able to discriminate also.
So, Councilman Adichie, we are in the middle of the vote, and my understanding is that that is not within our control, because this was a Supreme Court decision, if I'm not. So there's nothing we can do when regards to that. So we have a motion and on the floor that has been seconded to recommend the approval of this item for approval on a roll call vote for the first time. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council President Matos,
Aye.
Councilwoman Anthony,
Aye.
Councilwoman Castillo,
Aye.
Councilman Correa,
Aye.
Councilman Espinal,
Aye.
Councilman Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilwoman Harris.
Abstain.
Was that a nay?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Oh, abstain. Thank you. Councilman Igliozzi,
Aye.
Councilor Kerwin,
Aye.
Councilwoman LaFortune,
Aye.
Councilor Miller,
Aye.
Councilman Narducci,
Abstain.
Councilwoman Ryan,
I abstain.
Councilor Salvatore,
Aye.
Councilman Taylor.
Aye.
You have 12 ayes and 3 abstentions. The matter passes for the first time on a roll call vote.
Thank you.
Communications and reports. Item 38, communication from Sean Selleck, City Clerk, dated January 13th, 2021, of all monies received, transmitted to, and credited by the City Collector for fiscal quarter of October 1st, 2022, and including December 31st, 2020.
Receive.
Item 39, communication from Mayor Jorge O. Olorza, dated January 29, 2021, submitting the tentative agreement by and between the City of Providence and the Providence Lodge Number 3 Fraternal Order of Police for the period of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2023.
Oh, Madam President.
Refer to Committee on Finance. Leader Ryan?
Perfect. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam President.
Mr. Clerk?
Presentation of resolutions and congratulations. Item 40, Council President Matos and members of the City Council, resolution extending congratulations.
Madam President,
Leader Ryan?
motion to pass in a voice vote.
Second.
Motion has been made and second to pass item number 40 on a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk?
Presentation of resolutions in memoriam. Item 41, Council President Matos and members of the City Council, resolution extending sympathy.
Madam President,
Leader Ryan?
motion to pass item 41 on a unanimous rising vote.
Second.
Motion has been made and second to pass item number 41 on a unanimous rising vote.
Madam President. Madam President,
Councilman Narducci?
I'd like to be able to end tonight's meeting in the honor and memory of Abe Hernandez, please.
Thank
Madam
you.
President?
Councilman Correa?
Yeah, I was just asking if we can also end the meeting in honor of the passing of former colleague Councilman Brian Principe's mom.
Oh, thank you for letting us know. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion
Madam
ordered.
President,
Leader Ryan?
motion to adjourn in memory of our dear friend Abe Hernandez and also as my other colleagues have offered the mother of our former council colleague, Brian Principe. On behalf of the council, we wish our greatest condolences to the families and friends of those very dear folks.
Thank you. The motion has been made and second. Is there a I'm sorry, it was second already?
Nope, I need a second.
Oh, second.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and second for us to adjourn the memory of Abe Hernandez, Abelardo Hernandez. And so our deepest condolences to his family and also to Brian Principe's family on the passing of his mom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank
Be
you.
well and be safe, everybody.